Today, we're diving into real estate financing, focusing specifically on notes and mortgages. These are critical tools lenders use to document debt, secure collateral, and ensure repayment. Understanding how these work is essential for anyone involved in property financing. This module will give us a solid foundation in these key concepts, helping us navigate the complexities of real estate loans more confidently. In this module, we'll start by exploring how promissory notes and mortgages work within financing transactions. A promissory note is essentially a promise to repay a loan, while a mortgage serves as security interest in real estate to protect the lender. It's important to understand the distinct roles each plays. We'll also look at how these documents protect the interests of both the borrower and the lender. Finally, we'll analyze what happens in the event of default, focusing on the lender's rights to foreclose and reclaim the collateral, which is typically the property itself. This foundational knowledge is crucial for anyone involved in real estate financing. A promissory note is essentially the borrower's written promise to repay a loan. It clearly outlines key details like the amount borrowed, the interest rate, and the terms for repayment. This document creates a personal obligation for the borrower to pay back the lender, which means it's a direct commitment. It's important to understand that the promissory note is separate from a mortgage itself. While the note is about the borrower's promise to repay, the mortgage actually secures that debt by putting the property up as collateral. This distinction is crucial when discussing real estate financing. Let's take a closer look at the key components of a promissory note. First, the principal amount, which is the original sum of money borrowed that must be repaid. Next, the interest rate. This defines the cost of borrowing, expressed as a percentage of the principal. Then, the payment terms specify how and when payment should be made, including the schedule and amount. The maturity date is crucial as it marks the deadline by which the full amount, including interest, must be repaid. The borrower's signature is essential because it legally binds the borrower to the terms outlined in the note. Finally, default provisions explain what happens if the borrower fails to meet the payment obligations, outlining potential penalties or remedies. Understanding these components is fundamental to grasping how real estate financing agreements are structured and enforced. Let's talk about understanding the mortgage. Essentially, a mortgage is a security instrument. What that means is it pledges real property, like a house, as collateral to secure the repayment of a loan. This is crucial because a mortgage protects a lender's interest in the property until the borrower fully pays off the debt. In other words, it ensures the lender has a stake in the property during the life of the loan. Additionally, the mortgage creates a lien on the property. This lien gives the lender specific rights if the borrower fails to make payments or defaults on the loan, allowing the lender to take action to recover what is owed. So, the mortgage is both a protective tool for the lender and a formal claim against the property until the loan is satisfied. Let's take a closer look at the differences between a promissory note and a mortgage, focusing on their shape, function, enforceability, and default consequences. Starting with a promissory note, it represents a borrower's personal debt obligation and serves as a promise to repay the loan. Essentially, it's the borrower's written agreement to repay the amount borrowed under specific terms. On the other hand, the mortgage acts as a security interest in the property. It gives the lender rights against the collateral, in this case, the real estate, ensuring that if the borrower defaults, the lender can take action. When it comes to enforceability, the promissory note creates the borrower's personal obligation to pay, while the mortgage secures the lender's interest in the property. If the borrower defaults, the lender has two primary options. They can sue for the unpaid debt based on the promissory note, or they can foreclose on a property under the mortgage and force a sale to recover the loan amount. Understanding how these two documents work together is crucial because a promissory note and mortgage each serve different yet complementary functions in real estate financing. When we talk about a mortgage as security, it's important to understand that the mortgage itself doesn't create the debt. Instead, it establishes a lender's lien on the property. This means that the property acts as collateral, securing the loan. If the borrower fails to meet their payment obligations, that is, if they default, the lender has a right to enforce the security interest. They can do this through foreclosure, which allows them to take possession of the property to recover the outstanding debt. So, the mortgage is essentially the legal document that links the loan to the real estate, protecting the lender's interest while the loan is outstanding. This is a key concept in real estate financing, as it defines how loans are secured by property. Let's talk about how lenders protect themselves through mortgages. Essentially, a mortgage transforms a borrower's promise to repay into a secured legal position for the lender. This means a lender has a collateral claim. The property itself serves as security for the loan. If the borrower doesn't make payments, the lender is protected by having a claim on that property. One important aspect is the foreclosure right. If the borrower defaults, the mortgage gives the lender the legal authority to force the sale of the property to recover the debt. This is a critical safeguard. Another key point is recorded priority. By officially recording the mortgage, the lender establishes a public, enforceable interest in the property that holds priority over future claims. This ensures the lender's rights are clearly recognized ahead of others. All these elements work together to provide a solid framework for lenders in real estate financing. Here we focus on the core duties tied to mortgage, specifically the borrower's obligations. First and foremost, the borrower must repay the loan according to the terms outlined in the note. This means making timely payments as agreed upon. Next, the borrower is responsible for paying property taxes and any other required assessments, ensuring that these obligations don't fall behind. Another key duty is maintaining insurance that protects the collateral, which usually means keeping adequate homeowners or hazard insurance in place. Lastly, the borrower must reserve the property, avoiding any waste or damage that could reduce its value. These responsibilities are crucial because they help keep the loan current and protect the lender's security interest in the property. When we talk about default, it basically means that a borrower has failed to meet the obligations outlined in the promissory note or mortgage agreement. There are a few key ways this can happen. First, missed payments. This is when the borrower doesn't make the required monthly principal or interest payments on time. Missing these payments is the most straightforward form of default. Second, property damage. If the borrower allows a property that serves as collateral to deteriorate or lose value because of neglect, this can also trigger default. The lender needs to ensure their investment is protected, so maintaining condition of the property is crucial. Finally, no insurance. If the borrower fails to maintain the required hazard insurance coverage, which protects the lender's security interest in the property, this is another form of default. Having proper insurance is vital for both the borrower and lender to safeguard against potential losses. These are the main factors that define default in real estate financing. When a borrower defaults on a loan, there are several serious consequences to consider. First, missed payments can significantly damage the borrower's credit score. This drop in credit can make it much harder to obtain loans or credit in the future. Second, defaulting gives a lender the legal right to initiate foreclosure proceedings. This means a borrower faces a risk of losing their home if the issue isn't resolved. Ultimately, if the foreclosure process continues, the borrower may lose the property used as collateral. So, default isn't just about money. It impacts credit health, housing stability, and the borrower's long-term financial prospects. It's crucial to understand these risks when managing real estate financing. Foreclosure is essentially the lender's legal right to take action when a borrower fails to meet their loan obligations. It's triggered by default, which means a borrower has not kept up with their payments as agreed. When this happens, the lender can move to recover property that was pledged as collateral for the loan. This process allows the lender to claim their interest in the real estate to protect their investment. Ultimately, the property is sold, and the proceeds from that sale go toward repaying the outstanding debt, either fully or partially. This is a key mechanism in real estate financing to ensure lenders can minimize their losses when loans aren't repaid as planned. Let's walk through the foreclosure process, which is essentially a legal sequence that starts when a borrower misses payments on a secured loan and can ultimately lead to the transfer of property title. The first step is a default notice. Here, the borrower is officially informed that their loan is in default, meaning payments have not been made as agreed. Next comes the pre-foreclosure stage. During this time, the borrower often has an opportunity to fix the default, either by catching up on missed payments or negotiating some form of resolution with the lender. If the issue isn't resolved, the process moves to the auction phase. At this point, the property is put for sale, typically in a public auction setting. Finally, the transfer of title occurs, where ownership of the property passes to whoever wins the auction, or, if there is no successful bidder, back to the lender. These 4 steps outline the path from missed payments to potential loss of property through foreclosure. Understanding this sequence is crucial for anyone involved in real estate financing. Before foreclosure officially begins, the borrower receives a written notice that explains the situation clearly. This notice identifies any missed payments and confirms that the loan is in default. It outlines the exact amount due, provides a deadline for payment, and specifies what the borrower needs to do to fix the problem. Importantly, the notice also warns that if the borrower fails to take action, the lender may accelerate the loan and start the foreclosure process. After this notice is given, the borrower enters what's called the pre-foreclosure period. During this time, there is usually a limited window for the borrower to cure the default. That typically means paying all past due amounts, any fees, and other allowed costs. If the borrower can't or doesn't cure the default within that time frame, the lender may move forward with foreclosure. This process is designed to give the borrower a fair chance to resolve the issue before losing the property. Here we're looking at the 2 main types of foreclosure, judicial and non-judicial, each involving very different processes and timelines. Starting with judicial foreclosure, this method requires court involvement. The lender files a lawsuit, and the entire process moves under the court's supervision. Because it's formal, borrowers receive official judicial notices and have the opportunity to raise defenses within the case. This means the timeline tends to be longer and the process more expensive, as it's tied up in the legal system. Judicial foreclosures are used either when state law mandates court action or when the lender wants a judge's order to proceed. On the other hand, non-judicial foreclosure is an out-of-court process. The lender follows specific statutory notice requirements but doesn't file a lawsuit. This process relies on a power of sale clause, which is usually included in the mortgage or deed of trust, giving the lender authority to sell the property without court approval. Because there's no court involvement, non-judicial foreclosures generally proceed faster and at a lower cost. This method is common in states where the law allows it and when the loan documents authorize a private sale procedure. Understanding the differences between these 2 foreclosure types is critical because they impact how quickly and through what legal steps a foreclosure can occur. This knowledge helps both lenders and borrowers navigate the process more effectively. Now, let's talk about the foreclosure sale. This is a public auction where the property is sold to the highest qualified bidder in order to satisfy the mortgage debt. The process starts with the sale itself, which aims to recover the amount owed on the loan. Next, the money from the sale is applied to cover various costs and to pay off the mortgage loan. If there are any leftover funds after these payments, they go back to the borrower. However, if the sale proceeds aren't enough to cover the debt, the borrower might still be responsible for the remaining balance, known as a deficiency. Finally, once the sale is completed, the title of the property transfers to the new purchaser. This transfer is generally final, but it's important to remember that it may be subject to any legal redemption rights the original owner might have, depending on local laws. This overview helps us understand the critical steps in the foreclosure sale process. Redemption rights give a borrower the opportunity to reclaim their property by paying the amount owed within a specific time frame set by law. Typically, this period occurs before the foreclosure sale, but in some states, there's a post-sale redemption window that can last anywhere from a few days up to a year. To successfully redeem the property, the borrower usually must pay off the full debt, including any interest, late fees, foreclosure costs, and other legally required charges. It's important to note that these redemption rights can vary significantly depending on the state and the foreclosure process used. Understanding these rights is crucial for both borrowers and lenders in navigating foreclosure situations. When a property goes through foreclosure and is sold, the sale price is compared to the outstanding debt owed on the loan. There are 2 key outcomes to understand: deficiency and surplus. First, let's talk about deficiency. This happens when the sale price is less than the debt owed. For example, if the debt is $320,000, but the foreclosure sale brings in only $285,000, there's a $35,000 shortfall. In this case, the borrower may still be responsible for paying the remaining balance, depending on the state laws and the terms of the loan. This outstanding amount is what we call the deficiency. On the other hand, a surplus occurs when the sale price exceeds the debt owed. Imagine the debt is $320,000, but the property sells for $345,000. After paying off all costs and liens, the extra $25,000 left over would go back to the borrower. This situation is less common, but can happen depending on market conditions. So, understanding whether there is a deficiency or surplus after foreclosure is crucial because it affects whether the borrower still owes money or gets some funds back. Now, let's discuss the key legal protections available for borrowers facing foreclosure. First, there's a right to notice. Borrowers must be formally informed if they're in default and told about any upcoming foreclosure proceedings before those actions can move forward. This notice is critical because it gives them a chance to understand their situation and prepare. Next, we have a right to cure. This means that in many cases, borrowers can stop the foreclosure process by catching up on missed payments, along with any fees or additional charges, within a certain time frame. Essentially, this provides a window for borrowers to make things right and keep their home. Some states provide an additional safeguard called a right to redeem. This gives borrowers the opportunity to reclaim their property by paying off the full debt either before the foreclosure sale or even sometimes after. It's a last chance to save the home by settling outstanding obligations. Finally, borrowers have a right to contest the foreclosure. If there are any improper procedures, dispute amounts, or if the lender has engaged in unlawful actions, borrowers can challenge these issues in court. This legal avenue ensures that foreclosure is conducted fairly and according to the law. These protections are designed to give borrowers a fair opportunity to respond and, ideally, keep their homes despite financial difficulties. Let's look at a real-world case study involving default and foreclosure. When a borrower misses payments, the loan enters default after the monthly payments stop. The lender will typically send a notice and provide a cure period, giving the borrower a chance to catch up on missed payments. If this doesn't happen, the lender then accelerates the debt, meaning the full loan balance becomes due immediately. At this point, because the mortgage serves as collateral, the lender has the right to claim the property. This leads to foreclosure, where the property is sold. The proceeds from the sale are used first to repay the outstanding loan balance, and only after that are any remaining funds distributed elsewhere. This process protects the lender's interest while also outlining the borrower's obligations clearly. When we talk about foreclosure, it's important to understand that the rules vary significantly from state to state. This means the rights, timing, and procedures involved in foreclosure are not the same everywhere. First, notice requirements differ. States have different laws about when and how borrowers must be notified before their loan is accelerated, a sale happens, or foreclosure begins. This is crucial because proper notification gives borrowers a chance to respond or make arrangements. Second, the foreclosure method itself varies. Some states require judicial oversight, meaning the court must be involved in the process, while others allow non-judicial foreclosures, which can proceed more quickly under something called a power of sale clause in the mortgage. Lastly, redemption rights affect whether a borrower has the opportunity to reclaim their property after foreclosure by paying off the debt within a specified statutory period. Knowing these state-specific differences is key to navigating real estate financing and managing foreclosure risks effectively. Here are the 5 key takeaways that help us understand how debt, collateral, default, and enforcement work together in real estate financing. First, a promissory note is essentially the borrower's written promise to repay the loan. It's the core document that outlines the terms of the borrowing. Second, a mortgage provides a lender with a security interest in the property, which acts as collateral. This means the property can be used to secure the loan, giving the lender some assurance. Third, default occurs when the borrower fails to meet the loan obligations, such as missing payments or violating terms. Fourth, if a default happens, the lender has a right to foreclose on the property, which allows them to recover the debt by taking possession and potentially selling it. Finally, it's important to remember that borrowers have significant legal protections. These include the right to proper notice and fair procedures during the foreclosure process, ensuring the process is conducted justly. Together, these concepts form the foundation of how real estate financing operates in practice. This slide summarizes how the system of notes and mortgages protects all parties involved in real estate financing. First, lenders are protected because a promissory note provides clear proof of the borrower's promise to repay the loan. Additionally, the mortgage secures the lender's interest in the property, allowing foreclosure if the debt isn't repaid. On the other hand, borrowers benefit from clearly defined loan terms and payment obligations. They are also protected through notice requirements and legal limits on how and when lenders can enforce their remedies, which helps prevent unfair treatment. Finally, the public interest is safeguarded because recorded mortgages create transparency. This system makes ownership and lien priority visible to buyers, courts, and other creditors, fostering confidence, stability, and reliability in the real estate market. Together, these protections balance the rights and responsibilities of everyone involved. Now, let's review some key questions to help you assess your understanding of the material. First, consider how a promissory note differs from a mortgage in terms of purpose, content, and legal effect. This helps clarify the roles each document plays in a loan agreement. Next, think about what actions or failures on the borrower's part can lead to a loan default. Understanding this is crucial for managing loan risks. Then, identify the specific event that gives the lender the right to start foreclosure, which is important for knowing when legal remedies come into play. Also, reflect on the concept of redemption rights. These are the borrower's opportunity to reclaim the property even after foreclosure begins, depending on certain conditions. Finally, consider why foreclosure rules, timelines, and borrower protections can vary widely from state to state, emphasizing the importance of local laws in real estate financing. Take some time to answer these questions without looking back at your notes to really solidify your understanding. Now, let's discuss some important next steps for applying what we've learned in this module. First, consider how you would counsel a borrower who is in default. It's crucial to think about the types of notice that must be provided, explore the options they have to cure the default, and understand the potential risks of foreclosure. Second, be aware of the state variations that apply in your jurisdiction. Different states have different foreclosure methods, timelines, and borrower protections, so knowing these specifics is key for effective advice. Lastly, think about how notes and mortgages work together in practice. The note represents the borrower's promise to repay the loan, while the mortgage provides the lender with a security interest in the property. Understanding this relationship helps clarify both the lender's rights and the borrower's obligations. These are essential concepts to grasp as you move forward with real estate financing. To deepen your understanding, it's important to rely on primary law, trusted reference texts, and professional guidance. Start with comprehensive textbooks like Modern Real Estate Practice and Real Estate Finance and Investments, which provide foundational knowledge. For more specific information, refer to state-specific real estate law manuals and Uniform Commercial Code reference materials, as well as state mortgage and foreclosure statutes. It's also helpful to study recorded case law on default and enforcement to see how the laws are applied in practice. Professional sources such as the American Land Title Association, Mortgage Bankers Association, and State Real Estate Commission publications offer current industry insights and updates. These resources together will give you a well-rounded and thorough grasp of real estate financing concepts. We've reached the end of Module 2, where we've covered some important aspects of real estate financing. By now, you have a solid understanding of promissory notes and mortgages, as well as how the foreclosure process works. These concepts are essential because they form the foundation of financing in real estate transactions. You're now ready to take these core financing principles and apply them effectively when dealing with real estate deals. This knowledge will help you navigate the financial side of buying, selling, or investing in property with confidence.